Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, and this is my FromSoftware video games perspective. And I was thinking about how to do this one because ever since I've been doing these, I've got a list and I'm kind of going through all these different kind of video game series and everything that's kind of meant something to me, but also things that I've talked about with other people. And I wanted to talk about FromSoftware video games. Because I was going to do a Dark Souls one, but the thing is, I've played Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne. And I kind of want to give you my perspective on what these kind of games mean to me, but also talk about it with other people as well. Because, of course, their latest game, Elden Ring, came out this year. And it's kind of interesting to see what's kind of going on with FromSoftware. And I hope that Elden Ring's success doesn't screw them over. Because they talk about having, all these millions of units sold, and I hope that the people in charge don't get unrealistic expectations of these games, because even though there are a lot of people out there that love FromSoftware games, it does take a certain kind of gamer that really likes it and really enjoys it to get through it, and then other people get into it and just not be into it. So let me kind of explain my journey. I had heard about them and had heard from certain friends about FromSoftware during Demon Souls and whatnot, but I never had a PlayStation 3, so I was not going to go out of my way for that kind of one. And then Dark Souls came out, and I heard everybody talking about it, and I'm just it doesn't really sound that interesting to me. But at a certain point, I'm they talk about this get good kind of mentality, prepared to die kind of stuff, and just alright, I'll kind of try it. So I bought it kind of used from GameStop at once, and I just wasn't having any fun with it. And it was just, they talk about fair combat, and that it's a really deep world and everything, but it just didn't pull me in, and I didn't have fun. It's my journey through FromSoftware games really helped me to understand kind of what I want out of a game. I like an engaging kind of story to kind of keep me motivated and see kind of what's going on, what intricacies happen, but I also need a fun game aspect component. Otherwise, I just would watch or read a book for getting that engrossing story. And I just wasn't having fun with what was going on in there. I was getting very pissed off and very frustrated, and it would just muck with that kind of regulation and everything in my head, and I'm just hold on. I stopped in my head, and I'm the whole point of me playing a video game is to have fun. Am I having fun? And then I answered no. So I traded it in, and I'm just I'm good. Didn't beat it, didn't really care. But then I saw this series called Prepare to Try on IGN, and seen these guys kind of go through it, and I'm okay, I have a challenge to put forth on myself. And I got it again and kind of went through that, Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, to kind of test my mettle. But the thing is, I really wasn't having fun with that either. And I did the same kind of thing with Bloodborne. And you're well, you've played 4 of these FromSoftware titles and are explaining that you really haven't had any fun with them. And I'm yes, but the thing is, I had to play them to understand why I wasn't having fun, and what that kind of means to me, and what that kind of means in me to find games. So the thing is, they talk about how there's great story in Dark Souls, and that's and Dark Souls 2 is kind of weird. And Dark Souls 3 is kind of more like Dark Souls 1, and Bloodborne is just faster. So let's kind of go over the kind of thing that really happens with FromSoftware titles. Because for people, the thing is, these criticisms that I'm going to kind of levy against them, also, interestingly enough, I can levy against the Destiny franchise as well, which I am going to do a perspective on that as well, because that one's important because of Bungie and what that kind of helped me to understand about that kind of video game system as well. So, with FromSoftware, the story is an important aspect. However, how you interact with that story is obtuse as fuck. Okay? Like, you get something in the beginning that will pretty much give you a surface level thing of what's going on. Like, flames and everything going on in, like, the first and third one. And the second one kind of deals with some kind of similar concepts, but I really didn't give that much of a crap. It was more just like, hey, can I beat this before the next video kind of is uploaded with the other people? So it was kind of like a race between myself and them, and to see what was kind of going on. But within Dark Souls, you get these kind of like 4 lords that you have to go through, and you go through various different kind of lands and pretty much level up and get better gear. And the thing is, if you die, you lose all of your currency to level up. And it's just, it very much lends into a more kind of sadomasochistic kind of thing of, can I beat all these motherfuckers, or will the game screw me over? Or I pretty much more put it on the game design of screwing me over rather than sometimes skill. Alright, sometimes there's a thing that I fucked up and that happens to me. But when a motherfucker is able to kind of like have a sword go through a wall, or something's geometry kind of fucks me over and it just screws me completely, that needs to be taken into account, because I see a lot of like arguments of like, it's a really fair game, if you fuck up it's on you, and I'm like, I've seen a lot of instances where this is janky as shit and some weird shit is designed that kind of fucks you over, and it's intentionally built to fuck you over. That isn't fair to me, alright? Like, if my sword doesn't go through a wall, but like an enemy's or a boss's does, and you're like, oh, you got to account for that. So I should just be punished randomly for whatever reason. Alright, fine, cool. And that's just kind of the beginning of it, because I'm like, alright, and they're talking about, oh, wait until you get that, like, sense of accomplishment and everything when you beat the bosses, and I'm like, I don't get that. Because to me, when I'm playing this game, I don't really have a story, because I have to go into the obtuseness of reading certain things of, like, items, and piecing together stuff that could be true, might not be true, and if that's the point, then I've got to do all that work. I don't really care that much for it. Especially when I'm getting my shit pushed in, and I'm getting some weird fucking deaths, and I get set back, and I gotta keep grinding to get certain kind of things to level up, to potentially get certain other things, of like weapons and everything, and I'm just like, what? It becomes just bosses to me, and I don't get that sense of accomplishment. It's more, I wasted my time beating this thing that I didn't give a shit about. Because to me, a boss battle is more than just like dick flattening hard of just be like, yeah, because of some RNG of what I was able to accomplish to put it into such a position, instead of my skill, I beat this boss. Because I never felt skilled. I just felt like I got lucky all of the time to get past that boss to get through a new thing. It's like, alright, I don't feel that sense of accomplishment and pride and everything. It's just like, oh, okay. I don't even have a story to kind of connect it with. I usually have to read about it after the fact in like a wiki or whatnot for what it could be. And I'm like, at that point, I don't care. And then I'm like, okay, if I don't care, am I having fun? If I'm not having fun, I shouldn't be playing these. And that's where I've kind of gotten to it. Dark Souls 2 had the added effect of being really floaty and kind of even more different and kind of janky for certain kind of things, because I get that certain people like these games, but there's certain quality of life improvements that could have been implemented because it just would have made for a better experience. Now, 3 kind of got some stuff that was like done in like Bloodborne, not to the point where it's like super fast combat. Bloodborne is done more on the Lovecraftian kind of side, and instead of the kind of like dark fantasy. But they're very built along similar kind of lines, and it's a really interesting point to me, because I hear a lot of people talking about how Elden Ring is probably the easiest From Software game out there. And I'm like, okay, if you're into From Software titles, you've played Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, you've played Bloodborne, and you've probably played Sekiro. And all of these, while having certain kind of rudimentary changes, are fundamentally the same kind of game. Not that I mean that they are copy and pasted shovelware shit. I am not making that accusation. However, they follow the same kind of rules and kind of concepts and how they build their bosses and how they kind of allow your characters to interact with the world and how punishing and challenging it is. This doesn't have an easy mode, but from what I've heard, it's mainly been that Elden Ring gives you a vast array of options, and if you choose to go OP kind of cheesy and essentially make it easy mode for yourself, that's your fucking prerogative. And the thing is, if you've played all of the From Software games up until Elden Ring, of course it's going to be easy for you. There becomes a diminishing kind of returns kind of effect where they cannot make it harder for you, where you got good, and it's not going to be harder for you anymore. It's really kind of weird and interesting to kind of see that kind of thing take into effect. Now granted, I've not played Elden Ring because I don't want to play Elden Ring. I don't hate this series. I'm more neutral on it of like, I don't have fun with it, I don't engage with it. Memes? That's all good. I'm fine with seeing the memes and understanding it. It's just, it's odd and interesting, like, to see those kind of things, and I'm like, okay, you're talking about like easy modes and everything like that, but it just sounds like they're allowing you to pick whatever way you want, which essentially makes it so that way you can choose what kind of difficulty you got for it without putting in a just kind of fucking slider that does whatever's going on with the difficulty. Like, it's similar to like what I've done with like Halo. Halo's difficulty gets fucking nutty on Legendary. But the thing is, I'm not gonna be crazy and be like, your Legendary's too easy. Nope, never said that, never going to probably. It's just like, I had fucking sniper jackals pushing my shit in, man. But the thing is, I understood that each successive game came out and I spent longer in the franchise, I'm going to get to a point where like Legendary almost would become your base difficulty to do certain kind of shit in because you've gotten that good for it. And the thing is, I would just, there was a sweet spot. They would usually tune it on heroic difficulty where you're like, you got good enough challenge and you got good enough story. But it's interesting with all of that kind of going on, how I would see other kind of franchises with that. Because I get that they try and make it as punishing as possible. Alright? Like, prepare to die and everything. And the whole kind of thing of understanding difficulty sliders for what goes on with a game. Because the success of From Software games has also spilled out to other games, and I'd say in a worse kind of way. That is not From Software's fault. It's just everybody saw the successes that they were able to do with this and tried to copy them in the worst way possible. Where they made hard difficulties of, let's make everything bullet spongy and do complete and utter bullshit. Not that From Software's bosses are complete bullet spongy and do bullshit things, but there are enough of them that have fuck tons of health and do bullshit kind of things that it's From Software doesn't fall within that realm, but they've done enough of that kind of shit to me that I'm like, you fucker. And then others just are like, let's just do the barest minimum, up that fucking health and do a bullshit insta-kill move and we are fucking game. And then other people are like, that is stupid, you need to tune your heart difficulty to like better kind of shit, because it's just weird to see like the industry just like try and thunder copy that shit without even understanding the game design philosophies of From Software games. And then you're just like, I don't like that kind of stuff, so you try and figure out the difficulty that's not complete insanity to try and deal with. Ugh. And again, I do not fault FromSoftware for that kind of shit. That's some exec somewhere being like, I want the success of this video game. Make this hard so that way hard people buy it. It's like, alright, but we also need to put in difficulty so that way we don't dick flatten everybody. Alright, fine. Because I understand wanting to make sure that you don't completely and utterly fuck up the design philosophy of a video game. Alright? But the thing is, then you have to understand a certain immutable kind of fact that if you're into that kind of approach for a FromSoftware game, that it is going to be niche and that it is probably going to stay niche if you go onto that kind of route. Because there's going to be you could fall into a spiral where they're like, okay, you keep saying this game is too easy, and then they keep making it harder and harder unless people want to play it, unless people have the patience to do it. However, if you get into that kind of sadomasochistic kind of mindset for it, you'll go for it anyway. But you get into a certain point where you start winning yourself down to like how many people will play this, and the thing is, you want people to play your game, you know. And I'm not advocating for like just putting in a complete easy mode, but I want people to experience certain games and let them be able to do certain things. And if they want an easy mode where they can experience at least the story with like the minimal amount of frustration, and that way it's an accessible kind of thing to them, cool. That doesn't affect how I do it. That affects how the video game devs are going to have to scale the hardness and how they're able to do that and fine-tune that. That I get. And that's a hard thing to do, and if they don't want to do that, fine. But you're not going to get to a giant level of success without kind of trying to do that kind of balancing to begin with. It's talking about easy mode and like accessibility is a hard topic. I get that. I want video games to be accessible to everybody. Because there are certain games that you just need to experience, and if there's certain kind of things that you need to tweak so somebody can experience that, cool. It doesn't like dilute my experience if somebody's able to beat a game doing something less than I did. And the thing is, I never actually really thought about that, you know what I mean? Like, as I'm putting that out there, I never really thought, I'm like, okay, I did all this. I'm like, alright, that's just how I did it. That's just how I played it. That doesn't mean that they're any less or whatnot, depending upon what they've done. It's just, you get into that kind of thing where you got the toxic fans. And the thing is, I'm not saying all of them, okay? It's just in every kind of fandom, there are those fucking assholes that bring up, like, oh, you summoned, you didn't beat the game. Oh, you used this weapon, you didn't beat the game. Oh, you didn't do a naked run and not get hit, you didn't beat the game. And I just say, fuck them, Norm, fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be that asshole, that's on you. Nobody has to listen to you, nobody has to care. Because that's the thing. If that irks your enjoyment of a game because somebody's able to do something different than you, holy fucking shit, man. Like, even kind of like thinking about it like that, I'm like, no. Like, I just want to go and experience a game, and if I have fun and I laugh and I cry and I get emotionally invested in characters, I'm just like, yeah, cool. And if somebody else is able to do that, even if they play it differently than me, I'm like, cool. And then I can talk to them about it, and then we can figure out our different perspectives and what we are able to get out of it, and they've got something different out of it, and I got something different out of it, and then we're able to exchange those ideas, man, and get into a groove and learn something different about each other and ourselves and about the game itself. That's the cool shit. That kind of thing is what I go for. And I get that people get that out of these games. Alright? That is I am totally on board with that, and that is that shit that I love and the shit that I will protect, man. Know what I mean? It's just, I'm not part of, like, the people that love this game, or like this game. It's just, it doesn't bring me into the world. And that's all right. I don't hate these games. There are definitely aspects that I think need to be improved with certain hit things and everything like that. But for most parts on FromSoftware games, they... It's weird. I know Elden Ring's getting patches and everything, but it's like the multiplayer aspect where, hey, I'm going to be a griefer and completely ruin your shit. That they got to do tuning shit with everything, and fuck that. Again, that's a smaller aspect, but enough to, like, deal with. But mostly, they are complete games. I caveat that because I come from, like, the before times where games used to be either in a state where it's like, yeah, they're pretty much working, there might be some weird bugs, but you don't have the internet at this point. Then you get to the internet, it's like, oh, okay, we can use this to kind of fix certain kind of things, to the point of like, this is not even finished, and I have to wait at least a year before you have patched it enough to be finished. Fuck that. Most FromSoftware games are at least what I would consider finished products with minimal tweaking that needs to be done for certain aspects and certain times. So I do give them that tip of the hat for doing it. Now, this jacket isn't to be like shitting on, right? Most of the times I bring it out for shitting on things, and for like awesome things as well. This is more just analysis and getting out certain kind of criticisms that I've had for these games and what my kind of feelings are for them. Let's see. Because I've got over most of the main kind of views of them that I've had. Because I could try and go in depth with certain things, but it's just, I don't really remember most of them. It's like, okay, I went through, I did my battles, I spent time doing everything, didn't even really had most abilities to pause on certain things unless you're at whatever insert thing is to kind of do your rest spot, be it a lantern, bonfires, whatever Elden Rings is, whatever Sekiro's is. Yeah. Like, all I remember is just like, well, I'm done with this game. And then I would move on to other things. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy. That one I loved. I could, like, reminisce about fighting Fin Fang Foom, dealing with, having Drax try to deal with this, like, monster lady and everything, them being on nowhere, dealing with, the whole church aspect and like all this stuff going on, how Rocket would interact with Peter Quill, Gamora, everything like that. This, I don't have that. It's just going through certain kind of things, fighting certain kind of enemies before getting to the last boss and being done. And that happens with Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne for me. And that's the thing. I traded in all the other ones pretty much. And this is pretty much the only one I kept. Because I really wouldn't get much else. And also it kind of came in handy to be able to kind of make a thumbnail for this video. Because otherwise I'd have to try and figure out what the fuck to do with that. Let's see. I get most of my points. Yeah. So, would I recommend FromSoftware games to people? Well, that's if you like the challenge and you like the way that the story is conveyed to you. My biggest issue with the story is that in the way it is done, it is very lore heavy. But the thing is, in how it is done, it is more done in a way that it would be value add instead of this is how you interact with the story. What I mean by this is, you interact with the story, you'd get cutscenes, you'd get dialogue, you'd get talking with certain characters, and so on and so forth, correct? Well, in this, you're mainly just, you get sporadic cutscenes at best, that don't really communicate much, and you have to go deep into the lore portions to actually dig into what actually the fuck is going on. And I think that's a weakness of FromSoftware titles and also Destiny titles as well. Because it's done in a way it's like, oh, this should deepen the understanding of the story instead of I have to do this to understand what the story is and not even just get value add, just to be like, okay, I'm fighting this dude who is trying to keep this flame going. Alright. Or I'm trying to hunt these, like, elder god monstrosities until I keep going and going and going until I could potentially become one myself. If I did certain things right. Because I had to look at a wiki, because otherwise I wouldn't have any fucking idea how this fucking shit would have actually occurred otherwise. Bloodborne. So these FromSoftware titles are for, like, certain gamers that want certain kind of challenges. And are into those kind of challenges and are not as hung up with a story being told to them. Not saying that they... I know people would probably put them on and like, oh, you just want the story spoon-fed to you. No. I don't mind doing work and doing value add of going into the lore and understanding what's going on. I mean, I did a lot of lore diving with what was going on in Guardians of the Galaxy because I like to see what they were doing with, like, the Marvel connections and everything. I don't want it to just be flopped in and just be like, here you go, man. As a game, I want to interact and do certain things and understand what's kind of going on with the game as well. It's a whole other level here, so if you're not that into the story, this could also be one for you. But if you like to deep dive and do lots of lore stuff, sure, this could be for you as well. It's just, you're going to die a lot, and there's going to be a lot of frustration, and you got to be able to deal with that frustration. I just got to a certain... I got to a certain point where I'm like, this frustrates me, and it's not fun, and so I don't do it. You know? It's like, this is making me mad for no purpose than other than to make me mad, and make me frustrated, and make me not want to play. And then it's the simple thing of like, then I don't play. So, if you get to that point, don't push yourself. Don't have people who are like, oh, you didn't beat this, so you're not a real gamer or anything. Ignore them. Who gives a fuck? I don't. It's like, I'm glad I played through these games to understand what I like about games, and what I think is fun, and what games that I'm just like, I don't need to play, or I can stop playing, or, you know what I mean? So, those are the kind of things that you have to think about getting into, like, FromSoftware video games. Yeah. And you have to be in a lot of, like, into dark kind of stuff, because most of the worlds are fucked up, and there's not really a lot of bright things in it. There are some aspects, like Solaire from Dark Souls, but it's for a certain kind of person. Definitely research, definitely watch Let's Plays or streamers or whatnot to get an idea for whatever kind of games you're into, and kind of go from there. But just for me, if any of the games that I talk about and I'm interested in and really love, and you're into those kind of ones, that's cool too. It's different games for different folks, man. It's cool. So just make sure that you are comfortable with it yourself. And that's the kind of best advice I can give you for pretty much anything. Like, if I like something and you don't, that's cool. I don't have no beef with that. If the other way around, that's fine, man. It's cool. So just do you. So that is my perspective on FromSoftware video games. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, what are some of your favorite FromSoftware games? What do you think about my thoughts and opinions on it? What are your thoughts and opinions? Tell me. Discuss. Converse. Do the do's. So, do that. Like and subscribe. And I hope you have a good day.